Good evening, everyone. We welcome you to the launch of SafetyNiti 25, the fifth edition of Safe in India Foundation's report. Sandeep sir rightly spoke about why auto sector is important and why Safe in India's focus has been on auto sector. This is another point that we wanted to highlight, that so far around 11,000 injured workers have been supported by Safe in India Foundation since 2016, and 80% of them are from the automobile sector supply chain. Safe India focuses on evidence-based reporting and follows two approaches for two kinds of reports that it publishes. Uh, Rushed, which is a bottoms-up report where we analyze the data from workers on safety related parameters. And then SafetyNiti, the top-down report, where we track the publicly available OSH policies of the top 10 auto brands. For SafetyNiti, we assess the latest OSH-related policy documents and reporting for their policy and procedures with respect to their own factories and the supply chain. So these top 10 brands are identified on the basis of their revenue, and in the past 5 years, they have remained same. So here on the screen, you would be able to see the logo of these top 10 brands. In addition to it, in the report, we try to analyze how these brands address the OSH issues, particularly in the supply chain. It is important to differentiate between the reporting, how they report, and whether and if and how they take cognizance of what is happening in the supply chain, and if they're making the appropriate changes. Next, I would speak about the methodology. As already mentioned, the analysis is based on the publicly available documents. The analysis of these policies has been done in form of 21 indicators, 21 questions under three sections. The first section, it focuses on the policies of the brand's own operations. Second section focuses on the policies for deeper supply chain. And the third section focuses on the implementation of these policies across the supply chain. On average, there are around 10 documents and reports per auto brand, and some documents, in our experience, have been as long as 400 pages. So due to the scale of these documents, this time for SafetyNiti 25, we did an AI-assisted analysis with the help of Notebook LM. And after that, for greater transparency, the analysis was shared with auto brands against which we have been asking for the response, and then it has been made public in the report and would be put on the website through links as well. So this table represents the rank of the auto brands as per our analysis. The latest ranking of SafetyNiti 25 would be visible in the extreme right column, and it is in order of the brand's ranking. Over the past 5 years, since SafetyNiti 21, ranking of these auto brands, as per the analysis, has changed significantly. Bajaj and Hero have moved up from the lower positions in 2021 SafetyNiti to top positions. Eicher, TVS, and Ashok Leyland, they have consistently been near the bottom. Honda and Mahindra, they appear to have worked on their policies beyond their own operations, but it has largely been limited to tier 1 suppliers, which is one reason why a rank fall is visible for these brands. Tata and Hyundai, with some policy changes over the year, have largely remained same at the same ranking. So this is the summary of the analysis of the Safety Niti report. On the right, the latest analysis for Safety Niti 25 report is visible, and on the left, uh, the table is for the graph is for the Safety Niti 21 analysis. The table highlights the changes in policies over the years. So these two sections highlight the progression in the policies. You can so it is very well visible the change in color on the left side. When we began, it was almost red, and now you could see a greater proportion of green in it, and with a decent amount of amber all over the table with few red boxes. So regarding the first two tables on the color table on the top, these are about the OSH policies for their own brands. So more brands now treat. So there have been some positive changes which I would highlight. So now more brands treat their contractual workers at par with the permanent worker. So in 2021, this was three, and now there are six such brands which treat their contractual workers at par with the permanent workers. Seven brands now have a publicly available human rights policy, and three among these brands have covered the non-permanent workers under the human rights policy. For the OSH policies for deeper supply chain, more brands now have a contractually binding supplier code of conduct for tier one suppliers. In 2021, there were five such brands, and now in 2025, there are nine such brands. But these changes in the supply chain are largely limited to tier one. OSH and human rights continue to be not included on the board agenda for most of the brand, as it would be visible in question 6, which says, is OSH and human rights in the supply chain included in OEM or auto brands standard board agenda? A parameter that remains red for all auto brands between Safety Niti 21 and Safety Niti 25 is the absence of a standard operating procedure for deeper supply chain. You could see the question number 10 on both sides, it's completely red. So it has largely remained the same with no progress in this particular indicator. Okay, so this is the third section of the analysis, and it highlights the progression in the implementation of the policy. And you would be able to see the difference in the transition of colors from red to largely amber with minimum number of green boxes. Uh, so the reason for these are the focus of the supply chain mapping has largely been restricted to tier one, with Maruti being the only exception, which has done the mapping of more than 40% of their tier two suppliers. And this is visible for, so this is the marking for question number 16, which says that, which asks if the OEM has, or the auto brand has mapped the deeper supply chain for tier one and tier two. So actually we had put a criteria for this, that if any brand has done the full mapping uh, of their tier one suppliers and then more than 40% of mapping for their tier two suppliers, they would be green. So Maruti is the only auto brand which has done this. Similarly, OSH and human rights awareness training of most brands is limited to tier one. Here also Maruti Suzuki has been the only exception. with Bajaj having initiated but there has not been much progress uh, about that initiative of human rights and OSH training and awareness programs in their publicly made documents. Six brands now have a definite corrective action, which is up from zero in 2021, but no details on specific actions that they have taken has been made public. Also, these actions are largely reactive and there appears very limited provision of preventive action. So this I was talking about question number 19, which on the right side, that is the SafetyNiti 25 analysis, you would see red for 9 brands, with Bajaj being the exception, which has only initiated some process, but even they haven't declared any publicly made action. So there has been overall, it can be said that there has been a limited investment in supplier support in terms of training and monitoring. This happens particularly in the uh, tier 2 and tier 3, where OSH issues are most common, and from where the workers come to Safe in India for assistance as well. These deeper supply chain, in many cases, are a part of the supply chain for more than one brands. In a way, it could be said that the resources of tier 2 and tier 3 suppliers, that is the deeper supply chain, are shared by many brands simultaneously. Therefore, an industry level initiative would actively help the entire supply chain. One such way of proceeding for that would be a joint industrial association for development of procedures through adoption of best practices in the industry. For example, having an industry-wide SOP. Uh, so I now hand over to Dhanraj to take over the further part of the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks, Siddharth. Uh, so, continuing from where Siddharth has uh, left the presentation. So, one of the things that we have done this year as part of SafetyNiti, something new, is an analysis of the BRSRs, which is the SEBI mandated ESG reporting, which is compulsory for the top 1,000 companies, so which involves 78 auto companies. It's been compulsory for the last 2 years, 3 years. And so this is something we are also doing with IICA, government, the Ministry of Corporate Affairs. But there we are looking um, at the reporting quality. But here we are looking at just two principles, which is principles 3 and 5, which deal with OSH and with human rights. And we are looking at what the companies are doing rather than reporting quality. So based on that, here is an indicative graph. This looks at audits and like it has been mentioned for the top 10 OEMs, top 10 brands, it's similar for everyone, that they focus on their own operations, which is the first graph. But when it comes to the supply chain, more than half do not report or report zero. So that kind of indicates how much of a focus, how much of a lack of focus on supply chain exists in the larger sector. This is for OSH audits. It's the similar for other indicators under Principle 3 and 5, which are on working conditions, human rights, etc. And importantly, with changes in the scope of BRSR core, which is a subset of BRSR, with assurances being decreased and the year of implementation being moved, what we are expecting is further dilution. So yeah, but that's not ideal in terms of improving OSH and human rights in the larger sector. In the next slide, we cover the other stakeholders who hold an influence over brands and companies. Uh, we have been advocating to them. We have started advocacy towards these uh, stakeholders from the last year. So the two most important ones are the investors and auditors. But what we see is that, as part of the report, what we reported is that uh, the Indian investors do not have a focus on OSH as part of their policy, or do not have a focus on supply chain OSH, at least. It's zero across their policies or implementation. But some global investors do have at least policies. We do not have enough information about what they actually do, but that's good. Uh, and in terms of auditors, the non-financial auditors, thanks to BRSR, there has been some improvement in what uh, they, the kind of assurances that they give, but it's still limited. There's nothing much on supply chain. That's the larger picture. So we are hoping that our advocacy towards these stakeholders can actually influence the brands and the larger sector to move towards better OSH practices. And in the next slide, yeah, we are also talking of the government, which is other stakeholder. It's in the report, but we're not presenting anything here, except for one slide, which is the next slide. Siddharth. Yeah. So this is about the what Sandeep mentioned, but it's about how labor productivity is linked to working conditions. And this is something that we picked up because as per a McKinsey report, Indian MSME labor productivity to the large company productivity ratio, which is only 14%. That's half the emerging market average of 28%. So that kind of indicates that our MSMEs are not great with labor productivity, not even as much as other emerging uh, countries. And this is also indicated in our labor productivity ranking, which ILO publishes. We have been on 130s for a long time. So based on that and the larger idea that there's a linkage between working conditions and labor productivity, we submitted a paper to the chief economic advisor, which resulted in the economic survey, including this as part of the chapter. So yeah, the takeaway from here is that um, it's not just about work safety, not just about workers, it's also about the national economy, the productivity. So there's a larger picture here. The more on what the government is doing and what um, we could do in the report. But yeah, and uh, next we get to recommendations. So we have recommendations for all stakeholders, but the most important one is, of course, the top 10 automobile brands. And those are divided into two. There are three policy recommendations and four uh, for operational recommendations. These are based on 8 years of uh, understanding what the workers face, what the policies are. So 8 years of learning, we have distilled into these 3+4 recommendations. In terms of policy recommendations, broadly, these are on the brands, the boards of the brands taking responsibility, the need to professionalize MSMEs and improving the policies, and also operationalizing supply chain programs. So broadly that in terms of policy recommendations. And in terms of operational recommendations, these are on having a supplier code of conduct that gets into the deeper supply chain, and also including non-permanent workers and the supply chain, extending accident reporting to the supply chain, which is only now for their own operations, and then having a grievance redressal mechanism that covers non-permanent workers and the supply chain. That's broadly what the recommendations are. The details are in the report, and yeah, thank you. This is please do check out the full report for everything in a lot of detail. Now I hand over to VN Saroja, Head of Worker Safety, uh, for the panel discussion with uh, our injured workers. Thank you.
Thank you, Dhanraj.
जा सकता है